My name is Claire, and until that night, I thought kindness was something you gave Neva, something that could change your life. It was late November, the air so cold you could see your own breath. I was walking home from my graphic design job, exhausted, just clutching a bag of groceries and counting the minutes until I could collapse on my couch. That's when I saw her. She was sitting by a closed cafe, huddled beneath a torn, thin blanket. Her hair was tangled, her face was pale, and her eyes were this incredible shade of blue that almost seemed to glow in the deepening twilight. She looked up as I stopped, my feet just freezing in place. "Are you okay?" I asked. The second the words left my mouth, I realized how ridiculous they sounded. She offered a small, faint smile. "Just trying to remember what okay feels like," she said, her voice quiet. Something inside me just twisted. My own problems, my long day at work, my quiet apartment, it all felt so trivial in that moment. I hesitated for a heartbeat, my mind racing, and then I heard myself say the words that would change everything. "Come with me. I have extra food. You can warm up at my place." She blinked, her blue eyes wide with surprise, a flicker of distrust in them. I couldn't blame her. But then, slowly, she nodded. "I'm Riley," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Back at my apartment, I handed her a fresh towel, some of my old, comfortable clothes, and a steaming bowl of tomato soup. She ate quietly, her gratitude evident in the way she whispered thank you between each spoonful. I found myself noticing the little things, the small, faded scar on her lip, the slight tremor in her hands as she reached for a cup of tea. We talked for hours that night. She told me she used to be an artist, that she painted murals and portraits before her life took a wrong turn. A bad breakup, mounting debt, and then losing her home. She spoke about it with a kind of detached sadness, as if she were telling someone else's story. I told her about my life, my predictable job, my boring routines, the crushing silence of my apartment. When I offered her the couch for the night, she looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. It was as if no one had ever offered her something so precious. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. I managed a genuine smile. I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. That night, long after she'd fallen asleep, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about how someone so broken could still seem so beautiful. Days turned into weeks. Riley stayed. She was a quiet presence at first, but she slowly started to fill the empty spaces in my home and in my life. She helped me cook, she insisted on cleaning, and she started making these tiny, intricate sketches on spare napkins. My quiet apartment started feeling alive again. Her laughter, once I finally heard it, filled every corner. One evening, she handed me a piece of paper. It was a portrait of me, caught in a moment of laughter. It was incredible. "You should smile like this more often," she said, her eyes shining. I don't know what came over me, but I hugged her. She was stiff at first, completely taken by surprise, but then she just melted into my arms. "Thank you, Claire," she whispered against my shoulder. "No one's ever cared like this." But it wasn't always easy. There were hard days. I came home one night to find her sitting on the floor in the dark, shaking. Tears were streaming down her face. "I don't belong here," she choked out. "You're so kind, but I'm not someone you should waste your kindness on." My heart broke. I knelt beside her on the cold floor. "You are not a waste, I said, my voice firm. You're someone I want to keep in my life. She looked up at me then, her eyes wet and searching mine for the truth. And before I could second-guess myself, before I could think, I leaned forward and kissed her. It was soft and hesitant, full of all the unspoken feelings that had been building between us for weeks. When we pulled apart, she was still trembling, but a small smile touched her lips. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice breathy. "More than I've ever been about anything," I whispered back. From that night on, everything was different. We weren't just two women sharing an apartment anymore. We were two souls trying to build a new life together. She started painting again, truly painting. Her hands, once trembling, were now steady and full of purpose. Her art was incredible, and it started to sell online. Soon, she had clients asking for commissions. I watched her come back to life, one brushstroke at a time. The color returned not just to her canvases, but to her cheeks, to her eyes. One evening, I was working late at my desk when she came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder. "You saved me, Claire?" she said softly. I turned in my chair to face her, touching her cheek gently. "No," I said, looking into her eyes. "You just needed someone to remind you that you were worth saving." A year passed. Riley now has her own small art studio. The walls are covered in her paintings, vivid, emotional, and breathtaking. She recently finished one last piece for me. It's a picture of two women sitting by a window, holding hands, surrounded by golden light. "That's us," she told me when she showed it to me, "from the night you found me." I smiled, my eyes filling with happy tears. "No, Riley," I said, pulling her close. "That's the night we found each other." Thank you so much for listening to our story. If it resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories about connection and hope. We'll see you next time.